Great. So now that we've talked about kind of the middle and bottom of the funnel, what next, right? That's kind of the question that a lot of folks are asking themselves. We've closed these investors, we've closed these clients, these customers. What do we do now to keep them engaged? Do we want to keep them engaged? The answer is yes. You do want to keep them engaged. You want to make sure that they are in the know about their investments, the company, any sort of updates. They need to know about this because when they do, they feel very much connected, and no pun intended, but they feel invested, right? They want to make sure that they know what's happening with their investments. That's one of the scariest things as an investor is not knowing what's happening, right? When there's no communication, when there's or bad communication or just very sparse communication, it can make folks feel very uncomfortable. What you want to see these clients, these customers, these investors in your database as is a referral source, right? Is a way to get more investors. Going back to a point that Angela and I have made is it can increase your ROI on lead sources when you're reaching out to these folks and you're able to say, hey, do you know anyone? And maybe you don't have a referral bonus, right? You don't have some sort of financial benefit or spiff that you can give them, but you can say, hey, well, make the intro and maybe we can do something for you. There's always a way around it, but generally having some sort of financial or some sort of benefit to the investor will increase the rate of referrals. I know that some folks have done 2 to 5% referral bonuses of whatever that investor they refer invests. So let's say that you invest 100,000 and the investor that you referred invests 500,000. You would get somewhere between sometimes it's 1 to 5% of that paid in a bonus, right? It is a tax it is a tax event, right? So it is a taxable event that you would generally would have to put on your taxes. But the biggest thing is it's what's in it for them, right? Like what's the benefit to the investor. And so the best way to do that is to get those referrals, right, is to keep them engaged. So working with marketing, saying, hey, this is the type of information they want. So marketing works with the management, with the developers, with the builders, et cetera, to get that information so that they can convey that to the clients, to the customers, to the investors, so that they feel in the know. When folks feel in the know, they want to invest more, they want to make referrals, and they feel better. So sometimes maybe the investment isn't going the way you planned. It generally doesn't, right? Something goes differently, something goes wrong, et cetera. But if they know, they feel like, one, you're treating them with respect because you're trusting them with the truth. And that is something that's important. So maybe they don't make referrals, but they're not going to badmouth you, which is also something that you don't want to happen. So creating that communication and that type of marketing, that goes back to, a very big fundamental of all of this is to have that feedback loop with marketing to make sure that they're building the right communication, the right kind of communication, the messaging, et cetera, so that it really resonates with your clientele, so that you can continue to build out your customer base and your investor base without having to spend more and more money on ads or et cetera, whatever other lead source that you're spending money on.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great point because, we talked about diversifying your lead sources, right? And this is the channel that gets overlooked the most because people are so focused on net new, and all that. And don't get me wrong, you have to generate net new leads. Of course, you want to increase your investor database. That's extremely important, but it's almost counterproductive if you're doing that, but you're not actually taking care of the people that have trusted you and have invested with you. And I do agree that the types of communications and emails that existing investors receive should be very different than prospects. They should be getting updates about their investments. If they invested in one property, that property, should be like any development updates you have. or maybe there's some just any updates with the city that it's located in, something like that. I think investors really appreciate that you're taking care of their money, that you're doing something about it, and communicating that is really, really important. And also, they're sold on you, your team, and your investment, your fund. So I would scale back on selling. If you're constantly inundating them with new things and new things, they're gonna just be like, okay, you keep selling, I'm already sold. Just tell me about, how you guys are doing as a company, how your fund is doing and all that. So, like fundraising updates can also be really great. And I think that's where, marketing can help the sales team develop that types of materials, but also it's important for sales, investor relations professionals to continue to, build those relationships and strengthen those relationships because they trusted you. You're the one that ultimately closed that deal. So how do you maintain the trust? And, like you said, it's maybe they can be VIPs, they can get invites to special events. And if you can't give them any type of, monetary compensation or anything like that because of SEC rules and all that, maybe you invite them to a game or, send them a nice swag or something like that to show appreciation. You'll be so amazed at how far that goes. But again, it's maintaining the relationships. I think that's so much harder than a lot of fund managers would like to admit. And it's like, I always kind of compare that to marriage, right? When you're dealing with net new prospects and you're trying to convert them, you're dating. So you're gonna go all out and convince them to marry you. And then once you get married, well, that's it. Like, you're not making any efforts and things like that. But it's like, well, but that's what lasts. So that's where you should be putting your efforts to make sure that
Exactly.
it's that forever partnership. And as Nico mentioned, a lot of investors, even without any, benefits for referrals, if they know that, they've made a smart decision to invest in your company and in your fund, they will be the first ones to happily just share that with, their friends and their network to show, hey, I made a smart decision. You should do that. And I'm in the know. And they love that. So why not tap into it and, see how you can help, even give them talking points or, answer their questions. And, a lot of people may do investor Q&As or just investor specific events. Like, hey, do you have any questions? Before they have to find you and ask, why don't you just reach out and ask? I think that's so important. And that's the type of marketing that I feel like a lot of sponsors just kind of forget. They will just, think, oh, okay, well, they're investors. So now let's talk about, growing. But you're not really growing if your core audience, like your existing database, is not happy with you. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Is making sure that these folks know that you're putting in the work to keep them engaged, right? Like Angela said, it is like a marriage, right? It's not just once you're married, that doesn't mean that that's the finish line. That's actually the beginning, right? You need to make sure that you're putting in the work so that these folks feel like they're important, right? They want to feel like they get that white glove kind of service, so that they feel invested. No pun intended, ready to be invested. But the biggest thing is that way they will tell others. And so when they start telling others, that's something that you can do to support them. Like I said earlier, you can offer them some sort of financial bonus. But the biggest thing is folks want to invest like their friends. They want to invest like their peers. They want to invest like others that are successful. So another thing that can be done is, building, some sort of testimonials, right? Getting, it's like, don't take our word for it, take somebody else's word for it. That's incredibly valuable. And so working and identifying with the clients, the customers that you have, to see who would be open to that, and would they put their name out there. Maybe they won't just put they won't put their last name, they won't put their company, but they'll put, hey, this is my face and first name. And that's still very powerful, where it's, hey, this is someone that is sticking their neck out for us. They believe in this so much that they're willing to do it. And it's like reading Yelp reviews before going to a restaurant, or Google reviews or something like that. Frankly, it's if you see bad reviews, or if you see it's like, oh, well, the food's good but the service is bad, you might gamble, right? Sometimes those are the best restaurants. But you want to make sure that the folks who are talking about you and engaging in conversations about you, that they have nice things to say, and that it's like, hey, at the end of the day, when you're sending a new investor something, and this is tying it back to the new investors is, hey, you know what? We have a bunch of happy investors. Here's a testimonial that we have. Here's a video, an interview that we did, or here's some sort of blurb that we're sending you. But all of that goes into building out that existing client base through referrals and other things. So like I said earlier, when it comes to CPAs, when it comes to tax attorneys, working with them, treating them with respect. So sometimes it's worth it, buying them lunch, going to their office, right? And talking to these folks, educating them so that when they talk to a client about, hey, you're looking to invest somewhere, I actually have a recommendation. It makes it very easy, but it also wins those CPAs and tax attorneys, those professionals, a lot of brownie points with their clients, right? Where it's like, hey, I introduced you to something good. So that's another way to kind of get there, which goes back to at the very beginning, making sure that you understand where they heard about you, because if they've heard about you from a CPA, then it's like, oh, what CPA? We work with a lot of the CPA firms in this area, or perfect. I've never heard of them. Let me reach out to them, if that's okay with you, to say hi, offer any information, maybe send them some swag, send them, a coffee mug or whatever, which, also if that's important to clients that they have swag that has, corporate branded, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but that's something that you should also be sharing with marketing.
100%. And one thing that I want to point out is that this is the beauty of raising money directly from investors. So, if you're structured as a 506c, of course, you can go the direct channel, which is raising money from investors versus broker-dealer channel. And, I think a lot of companies do both, which is brilliant. You should be diversifying the way that you raise capital. But what you have so many benefits of raising money directly, and that's one area that I think people forget. The testimonials that Nico mentioned. Oftentimes, when you're working with financial advisors, they're not really able to give you that because of strict guidelines that they have to follow. So they may not be able to give you the client testimonials or those types of I guess like reviews, but accredited investors can and would do that. So why not take advantage of it, right? Your investors can be your biggest cheerleaders. So I always say it's one thing to say, I'm great, I'm really good at this, but it just goes, much farther when someone says, you know what, that person is great. I highly recommend that person. You would trust that more so than anything else. And I think, you mentioned the reviews, and I think about, like for example, restaurant. I think that people tend to read the reviews of the customers rather than like a restaurant critic, so to speak, right? Like a, food critic. So think about it that way. Like your investors can be your biggest, like, basically they can be an extension of your marketing team. So I think it's really important to maintain those relationships. And with that, I think that this is a good time for us to kind of talk about, how you can build some processes in place to be able to, be efficient with communicating with your investors and maintain those relationships, and how to be consistent. Because I think consistency often gets lost. You want to make sure that everybody on the sales and marketing team are working efficiently. So let's kind of talk
Exactly.
about.
Yeah. So what I've tried to mention throughout all of this is to make sure that there's a feedback loop, that you're getting granular, that you're qualifying folks, you're gathering as much information, so that when you're having conversations at the beginning of your fiscal year, right, and you're doing planning for the rest of your year, for budget, for effort, et cetera, where to put the money, where not to put the money, where to put the effort, and so on. But the biggest thing, right, is if you say, hey, we can expect this much investment at this time from these folks, every year, maybe it's every other year, depending on what you're looking for. That's something that can be incredibly valuable. Where hey, like you're on a recurring investment, or you're on, we have new investments coming out every single year. Perfect. Can we count on you as someone who do you want to hear about this, or do you want to be one of the first to hear about this? And if they say, yeah, perfect, mark them that way, make sure that marketing knows, so that when that email blast goes out on, a Saturday when they're at home doing, whatever, that they get that information as soon as possible, so that they can be, like Angela said, an advocate for your product, for your company, so that it makes it easy to get more and more leads, but also just get more out of your existing investors. But having that all in place, writing it down, getting granular, having therapy sessions with sales and marketing, talking about stuff. But the biggest thing is having all of the information, or as much as information as possible, makes planning a lot easier. So that you can say, hey, this is working, this is not working. We have our 5 steps or 10 steps or 20 steps that we need to go through to close someone. Well, perfect. Like let's write that out. Let's jot it down. Let's figure it out. If you're working with marketing and they're trying to do something as far as let's say they're doing a webinar, it's like, okay, perfect. Well, it takes a month to properly promote a webinar. So there's going to be this, use a Gantt chart, use some sort of whatever to build that all out, so that what you're doing at all moments, and you're plugging and playing your team members as necessary, so that you have these processes that are easy. It makes it very simple when a sales rep is finally trained up, they've ramped up and they know how to do all this stuff. It makes it very simple because they can just plug and play, they can push the button, and then sell, right, and close. So same with marketing. Once they know, hey, this is what we need to do at this time of the year, this time of the month, etc., it makes it very easy to then scale, right? Because you have all of that running in the background, and that's like, okay, well, now we need to add more. So where can we add? Where can we expand, right? And so that's the key that folks they forget about is, okay, well, we can get repeatable recurring revenue from these sources at these times of the year, et cetera. Perfect. So let's not let's budget for that, but let's also say, okay, well, what if that doesn't happen? Because stuff happens and things change. So making sure that you have all of that written out, all of that planning that done, so that when you do go to add more, folks feel comfortable with maybe diverting some of their efforts and energies and time to other new things.
And without getting too technical, I think this is where having the right CRM system in place is really important. So again, there's no one-size-fits-all solution here. You can go with HubSpot, MailChimp, Salesforce. It really depends on your budget and the size of your organization and so forth. But what we would emphasize is that make sure that everybody on both marketing and sales are speaking the same language and that they're trained on this. So, if you're talking about, qualified leads, what does that mean? And you ask a marketing person versus sales, make sure they're defining exactly the same way and they're marking it the same way. And same with opportunities and close and so forth. I think that's one piece that it can completely blow, I think, like, blow up your processes if both teams, if they're not speaking the same language and they don't understand what it means, and also they're not really trained on the CRM. So again, that's something that having the right team in place, or hiring the right consultants, can help you set that up and make sure that you can also track your progress that way too. I see a lot of sponsors using Excel. That's great, but as you scale, that's really not going to be sustainable, and
Yeah.
it's too, I mean, it's often like, I think you're vulnerable, for like human errors, like that can happen. But if you automate that, it's really easy. And you can, even with like ChatGPT right now, you can automate so many things, right? And even
Yeah.
write your emails. Like, let technology do some of the job for you, so you can really focus on, raising capital, keeping your investors happy, and just continue to, grow your business. So I think that's important.
I think that's very important, right? Automation is incredibly valuable and effective when you're rolling stuff out. There are certain schools of thought where folks kind of generalize salespeople as lazy. I think that's a good thing. You can play into that by automating a lot of processes where they're pushing buttons and they can focus on what they love the most, which is closing business. So making that easy, but getting their feedback, getting customer feedback, so that certain things like, hey, we don't like this part of the process, we'd like to do, could we do it this way? And sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no, sometimes it's okay, let's find a solution. But always getting that feedback from your team, from your clients, so that you're automating as much as possible, so that you can divert your efforts to the parts that you can't automate, right? That white glove service, et cetera. But the biggest thing is when it comes to buying technology, there are so many things that you can do. Going back to Excel, Excel is great. I have family and friends who use Excel all day, every day. It is a fantastic product, but when you're trying to scale, a full a company and actually manage a CRM, there are products out there for all shapes and sizes, all sorts of budgets, and they're generally better than managing all your clients within an Excel spreadsheet, which can get very, very tedious, very, very messy, very quickly. And so overall, always making sure to, hearing what your folks want, right? If there are certain tools or certain things that they think could be valuable, listen to them, try them out, see if they could work, see them if it would add value to your pipeline, right? And building that pipeline. Other things too, right? If some software that you thought could be good, get rid of it. And if it's not working, right, get rid of it as soon as possible, to cut that from the budget, right? So that you open up budget. But overall, making sure that the process is as well oiled as possible, so that everyone can do their job, and take the least amount of steps to get from point A to point B. And that's really, really important to all of this when you're scaling a sales and marketing organization.
Absolutely. And if you get the basics right, if you have a strong, solid foundation to begin with, and make sure that, your processes, the right processes are in place, it's just going to save you so much money and time and efforts in the future for so many years. I think oftentimes, people want to either go cheap or they just want things quickly and they miss a lot of these key steps. I would say just take the time, find the right CRM platform, and just spend, some time and resources to make sure that that's built properly so that you don't have to do it and it's consistent. I think consistency is really, really important. I see so many, companies that don't really invest in positioning themselves, right? And then you look at some of their ads, or the way that sales professionals may be talking about them, and I would hear it and see it and say, oh, is that the same company? Because I just don't recognize it. Either the messaging and marketing is completely different than what they say they are, or the sales people are not really regurgitating that, or they're saying something completely different. So just make sure everybody's on the same page, because you want people to recognize you. And when they see your company name, or, your executives or the principal or the fund managers, whoever your key people are, they instantly know, like, oh yeah, I trust them because of XYZ. And your messaging is super consistent. Let's see. I mean, I think we covered a lot. We talked about, just basically making sure you have the right processes in place and the sales funnel and things like that. Are there any things, is there anything else that you want to add, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So the last thing I will say is, if you have any questions about this, if you have any sort of questions that you want to ask us, feel free to reach out. We're here to answer these questions. Work with you and build out these things, the initial steps of all of this with you, with your budget, with your time constraints, etc. If we can make it happen, we will. But please feel free to reach out to us. We will be sharing our contact info and website shortly. So feel free to reach out to us. We want to talk to you. If you have any questions, we're always happy to do a 15-30 minute free consultation, just to chat things over and see if there's a good fit, scope things out. But yeah, anything that you have else, Angela? Otherwise, I think we can call it a day.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.